This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hey, Place to Be Nation, Adam Murray here from the NBA team. We're gone fishing now, episode 2. Be doing a little West Coast first round playoff failures. Be doing a little Oklahoma City, a little Utah Jazz, a little LA Clippers. And let's round it out with some San Antonio Spurs. Hope you enjoy the show.
Set a screen. Oh, Westbrook got by, split the defense, and elevates. But how about this play? Saw the space and detonates.
Just a great crossover on Hernan Gomez as he was trying to come over. I guess the ball doesn't allow.
Adam, I'm waving bye-bye to you just like Damian Lillard did to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But now I have to say hello to you because we have to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder who got vanquished by the Portland Trail Blazers in the first round of 5 games after that epic big-time 3 by Lillard. Very unceremonious end to say the least. Should the Thunder fans have felt as disappointed by the season as they did at the moment that they lost on that game winner to Portland? Did it seem like that low of a disappointment?
Well, yeah, because you always think you're going to win. And the problem with this team, and I assume you'll have way more talking points than me, is this team is who they are. They're already in the luxury tax due to Westbrook's Supermax.
They're deep into it. Their projected cap, just to get out of the way, $147 million. My God.
And they have nothing. Their roster is without. They can't make any moves. They can't add anybody because they're stacked everywhere.
All they have is the biannual exemption. I mean, that's all they got. Literally, they have nothing else.
That's it, and that's going to cost them. 3 times as much.
They got mini mid-level, which is like half of the mid-level, which is like $4 million. But who the hell are you going to get with that? Re-signing Raymond Felton again? Yeah,
they're stuck with this roster. Mm-hmm. And we mention it before, we mention it every time. Russell Westbrook's going to shoot you in or shoot you out of the game, and they can only this team is who they are. So I will just sort of skip all the little, dancing around it. Is it time just to make a coaching change?
Well, obviously, I don't think Clay Bennett agrees because he basically made a commitment that he was going to keep Billy Donovan for another year. Because if he would have been fired, it would have happened already. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, I know, but you can't fault the roster because the roster is who they are.
Here's the thing. Donovan was there when they still had Durant and they were 1 win away from going to the NBA Finals. So maybe ownership really believes that it's not completely on Billy Donovan for the first round failures of the Thunder, that it might be something inherent, like you're trying to say. Would a coaching change just suddenly make them better? I don't know. I will say this. The only thing that felt like a waste for that team was that Paul George had an unbelievable year. It did come out later that he had messed up shoulders. Did you hear this story? That he had surgery on both of his shoulders.
Yeah, that was odd.
A guy who averaged 28 points a game might win Defensive Player of the Year, and he was playing with a torn labrum for the last month of the season. That's unbelievable. It sort of explains some things that happened later in the year of why George didn't always look as effective as he did earlier in the beginning of the season. But he had a terrific year. I would almost say he was the alpha dog of the team, but we all know that the alpha dog of any team Russell Westbrook plays for is Russell Westbrook.
And that's why I said would it be beneficial to have somebody who looks at things a little bit differently? Because
no one's going to look at it differently from Russ. Russ runs the show.
But Billy Donovan, he's done the same thing, just year in and year out. Didn't change anything up. Didn't try to get any, you had Terrence Ferguson, and because Roberson was out, you had to play him and start him, and you're like, well, if we squint hard enough, he's good, and then, well, let's draft the Hamidou Diallo right behind him, who plays the exact same position, and Abrinas, he got
Well, Alex Abrinas is finished, yeah. He said goodbye.
Yeah, he said he had enough, and they're like, okay, it's cool, and that's just a weird story because nobody really said anything about it, but they sort of squandered him as he was very talented coming from Europe, and just, again, the roster as they are, the minutes are set for everybody the second they walk through the door. It's just, I can't think of anything else. Can you possibly think what's wrong with this team?
Well, I think that, if you look at the stats, the biggest issues that they have is that even though they're very, very athletic, and they still have some good athletic players on their team, like Abdul Nader and Hamidou Diallo, and Nerlens Noel has a player option at $1.9 million. But let me tell you, I don't know if he could even get more than that on the market. Maybe I'm being hypercritical. And Dennis Schroeder's got a little bit of range of athleticism to his game still, and Terrence Ferguson. So they got a lot of guys there that they can throw at you, but turnovers, the fact that they don't have a lot of high assist mark because Westbrook gobbles the ball so much. I know he averages a triple-double, but guess what, Adam? At the end of the day, that's still 10 assists. A team needs more than 10 assists.
Agreed.
There's
but you're not going to get that from him.
There's a lot of filling the stats there, definitely with Westbrook. Let's not lie. I found it interesting that he was willing to let George be the leading scorer. He wasn't the leading rebounder, though. He was actually the third leading rebounder behind Steven Adams and Westbrook. That just goes to show how good of a rebounding team they were. Adams still cannot average a double-double, even though he's making $25 million a year. I'm starting to get kind of worried.
There hasn't been any improvement in him in the last few years.
I like him. He's one of those rare guys that averages more than a steal and a block per game, which is always good. It shows defensive prowess. But then you look at the defense, they're 15th in points allowed. Their efficiency was good, but they don't block much shots. They foul way too much, And then, this is the biggest criticism I would say of Billy Donovan. What do they do? What's their style? When I see Golden State, I know what they're going to do. They're going to run a bunch of ball screens, and they're going to take a lot of threes, and they're going to try to fool you with some of that passing wizardry. When I watch the Oklahoma City Thunder, I don't know what I'm watching. I'm watching two star players and a bunch of athletic guys not knowing what they're doing.
No, again, if you have any sort of solution, I'm more than happy to hear it because I'm struggling with this team.
Well, the only thing, like you said, the biggest issue is that they're not going to be able to add anything unless they make like a pull off, like the Houdini move of a lifetime. I'll give you one. Do you think they can stretch Andre Robertson?
No, he's an expiring contract. It's not worth it.
But you can at least get some kind of immediate help if you stretch him now. But then have him on the books for 4 years? Because he's got $10 million left to go.
It'd be 3.
Okay. It'd be tough. Markieff Morris, will he be back?
No.
They borrowed him, and it didn't really work out. Raymond Felton, I think that experiment failed. We need the Thunder, I think, need a very good pass-first point guard.
The only sign I thought that did work was I'm just drawing a blank now.
Patterson.
Patrick Patterson's just old now, and his legs were falling apart.
Yeah, he is completely done. He is completely done. One thing I do agree with Billy Donovan, where either a change of coaching might help, or maybe just like a come to Jesus moment for him as a coach in the NBA. I think they need to slow down a little bit. I think they play too fast of a pace.
Just kind of reckless. And
yes.
Of course, we can't forget the great signing of Nerlens Noel, who was reduced to a 1-year prove-it deal and just really couldn't do much.
He shot 58%. There's that. So he wasn't he wasn't Patrick Patterson. I'll just put it that way. He still had a little bit left in the tank.
That's your criteria, is he wasn't Patrick Patterson.
At this point,
the expectations are so very low if that's what we're going with.
Like I said, when it comes to free agency, I don't really have too much. They got to make it happen with a trade. Maybe they can either move Dennis Schroeder or Jeremy Grant. If they move Steven Adams, that really frees them up a little bit and it gets them at the tax. But what are you going to get in return? And you're obviously going to be worse without Adams, and he's a starting center. So I don't really see. Do you think moving Adams would make any sense?
I don't know. I just don't know what they could do.
Thank you, Thunder analyst Adam Murray, for your strict analysis.
But whatever move they do, is it going to do anything? No, because it's just Westbrook's just going to he's going to average his triple-double and almost have a quadruple-double with turnovers.
And you're staring down a Supermax. That's the other problem.
That's just it, I don't know what this team could do to make themselves better. They're just so slammed at the wall. But then again, we never thought Paul George would stay there, and he seems to be happy. So it's just hope everything turns up heads for you at 1 year.
Do you think Kevin Durant is still laughing at his couch watching the Thunder, or do you think he regrets it a little?
I think he's just moved on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it doesn't even give them 2 notices. So what's your hashtag for this team?
The hashtag that I have for the Thunder is triple-double or nothing. You see the play on words? You see what I did there? It just feels like either you're going to get all that excitement with Russell and PG just doing what they're doing, or you're just going to have a team that fails in the playoffs. You're just going to have to learn. It's almost like the Blazers when Clyde Drexler was there. Either you enjoy his greatness, but you also have to accept the flip side that you're never going to win a championship.
I don't have one anymore because I just, they got out of the Carmelo thing. They tried with that. That failed. Melo showed he had nothing left in the tank. And now they're sort of picking up the pieces by that, but they have no room to pick up any pieces. They're just, hashtag slammed against the wall.
They have slam dunk champion Hamidou Diallo.
Who is riding the bench.
And also, but we also got to mention this because it was just so crazy. How did he not break his leg?
It didn't look that bad.
But it looked like he broke his leg. It was almost like a magic trick, like a David Blaine thing.
Do
you like him more or Ferguson?
Ferguson's a little more of a complete player, although
he can shoot a few threes. Yeah,
neither are good. But they're both teenagers. They're both young, so they're not supposed to be that good.
Yeah.
So they're learning, and they get a chance to learn as opposed to usual playoff fodder where you're just you're picked on that deep team. You're on the bench.
I think for Sam Presti it comes down to 2 things. Do you bite the bullet and try to trade Steven Adams when he's at his highest value, or do you admit preemptively that the Dennis Schroeder experiment has failed and you try to move him first? That's, I think, what it's going to come down to if they want to make a move.
Schroeder wasn't bad. Considering you're taking a full usage person in Westbrook and you need to spell him, why not just mimic his exact game? So, the problem with him, again, $17 million, so he's very expensive as a bat on the bench.
Yep, I totally agree.
Played here for a year and a half, 11 and 13. There makes it, faces up Gobert, puts a shoulder down. Oh, get that out of here by Gobert. The bigger Gobert. And again, he shows that explosiveness, but Gobert sends it into the seats. There's Zach Collins, and he is denied by Gobert. He's definitely the go-to guy. Gobert. They're going to take Gobert. Blocked by Rudy. Wow. Smart's got it. He's running coast to coast. Gobert. Get out. Gobert will call deal runs against Joe. Blocked by Gobert. 49-38 Utah. Booker has 8 straight. Runs it inside. Gobert got a piece. Tonight done. Back inside. Martin and John's blocked by Gobert. A common occurrence nightly. Blocked by Gobert.
Adam, the Utah Jazz, they got eliminated by the Houston Rockets. No, this is not a repeat of the 2018 postmortem that we did on Utah, but it does feel a little bit like more of the same. Would you agree?
Well, they had high hopes this year. This was the year, last year they came out of nowhere, and now is our time. All of a sudden now we're a playoff team. We're, in the thick of it, and then just, bam, we hit a glass ceiling, and that was the end of it.
What did you think of the Kyle Korver acquisition? Did it really make too much of a dent? I know that in the series itself, like their 3-point shooting was decent. They were in the top 10, but it didn't really seem to match up well against Houston because Utah, they're like a middle of the pack pace team and they like to play defense. And did you feel like Korver made any kind of major impact for them? They're going to probably have him for another year. I don't see him being traded.
They have a partial option on him. He has half his contract guaranteed.
Okay.
He did what he did. He shot the as a shooter, but he didn't play defense. So, I mean, he wasn't the issue on the team. The team is they are who they are. They gave the ball to Mitchell and said, "Okay, you're gonna be our James Harden," and he tried and he couldn't do it.
And so they turned Joe Ingles into their point forward.
Yeah, they turned Ingles point forward. They went all out to get Rubio last year, and they're like, well, we don't like you anymore. You're not who we thought you were.
Well, explain that. What happened with Rubio? He's going to be going in as an unrestricted free agent this year. Like, what did you think that he regressed as a player?
No, I thought he was perfectly fine as a player. They just, I think, were expecting for him to change his game all of a sudden with a change of scenery.
Okay. And we knew that wasn't going to happen. He's an assists first, kind of a rugged defensive type of player.
Yeah, and that's the guy he is. And especially if you have Mitchell getting the ball all the time, you can't do that. And then all of a sudden, okay, we're going all in for you. We're happy to have you. We're good. We're good. We're going to trade you for Mike Conley. Oh wait, Memphis backed out all of a sudden. Why did they do that? Oh, now it's just awkward. So they really just shook his confidence with that.
I will say that they finally got rid of the deadweight that was Alec Burks. Here's the one that really there's a few of those other ones that are kind of weird that we could talk about, but I thought that they were decent contributors for the most part. I know that you're not a huge fan of Derek Favors, but he still averages 12 and 7, and he gets blocked shots, and he's a big body, so he does have his benefits
but here's
for the team.
They have a team option on him, and
okay,
is it really a slam dunk?
No, I don't think it's a slam dunk. I think if they wanted to turn him away, they could do it, or if they wanted to trade him, they could do it. Jay Crowder had a very nice year. He kind of bounced. I mean, he sort of bounced back from the Cleveland trade anyway, and it turned out it was just a bad environment in Cleveland that led to why he didn't play well there. He was sort of back to his Boston ways, I guess you could say, quote unquote, in Utah, and he proved it again this year. I thought he was pretty good. He made a couple of threes. The one that's really fascinating is that if Ricky Rubio leaves in free agency, Dante Exum has had a rash of injury issues. Will he be ready to take over as the starting point guard is going to be the big question.
No, because the problem is he went out 2 years. 2 of his 4 years had season-ending injuries.
You have him on small money. You got him at $9 million until 2021. So if he can work out with Mitchell, who is now a bona fide superstar. So good for Utah. They at least got one of those. Then that is a tremendous benefit. You have a very low-paid, really star-studded backcourt with Exum and Mitchell, but it's so prevalent on Exum taking the leap. We didn't even get to Rudy Gobert. We'll talk about him in a minute.
No, there's nothing worse to talk about him. If he isn't
great
defensive player of the year,
rebounds a game, yeah, defense. He was the rating defensive player of the year, 66% from the field, gets to the free. He was a better scorer this year than I remembered him last year. I'll say that.
Yeah, he was the defensive player last year, and he could easily win it again this year. So he is he's deserving of that max contract. The question here is, Utah is committed to being buyers. They want to be in on it, but how? Realistically, how can one upgrade their roster from Favors and Rubio?
Here's what blows my mind is that they have Donovan Mitchell on rookie contract money, and they're at $92 million on their cap projected. I mean, how is that possible? I guess that has a lot to do with the fact that they have Derek Favors for $17 million.
They have Favors for 17. You have Gobert getting a max. You have Joe Ingles. They gave 4 years, $52 million. Rubio is like $50 million. So there's people out there. Alec Burke made $10 million before they traded him. So they filled up the roster. It wasn't amongst 3 people, but they have that was the one thing Utah was known for having a nice deep team. So, but again, how realistically do you upgrade?
How will they give up on Tony Bradley? He has a team option coming up.
He didn't really do anything.
Grayson Allen, I've always been a fan of his. I can kind of smell him being like the sixth man for Utah next year. Can you see it? Like he would basically be in the role that Royce O'Neal plays if Allen can sort of take the leap.
He needs to take a leap, though. That's the problem.
He's got some potential, though. He's got some good athleticism, but he averaged less than 6 points a game. So there's, that goes to my hashtag, which is face the facts. What's yours?
I believe mine was just stuck in the middle.
Oh, the clowns to the left of him and jokers to the right? Instead, really good teams to the right of him and really good teams to the left of him.
And they're just there, and you can't break out with what you have, and you've really essentially maxed out on who you can be as a non-premier destination, sort of. Like, they've done everything they can. They've done everything right.
I think they can get good players to go there, or good mid-level players to go there, kind of like when they got Korver. I don't think Korver was necessarily asking to go back to Utah because he had played once. I say back because he played once upon a time there in, like, the late 2000s. But, like, I think they are – I wouldn't say destination team, but they are a team that if you want to play for a team that can be good, Utah's not a bad option. Here's a really good question for you. As good as he is now, and as much as he stabilized himself as a superstar, did Donovan Mitchell get better from his rookie year?
I don't think so.
That's shocking, isn't it? Or does it show how great Donovan Mitchell was his rookie year?
I don't think he got better because his usage rate was so damn high.
And his assist mark went way down. Didn't he have a streak where he had 0 assists?
I remember there was a game where he had 0 assists. And
he got killed on Twitter for it. I remember that.
And that's the thing is, did he improve? Well, yeah, he improved his game, but if the ball's going to you 90% of the time, you can't be that guy.
Mm-hmm. They'll still have that great home court. That's something that just Utah always will have. But I mean, obviously, you don't want to bog yourself down. That was sort of the reason why they had to let Gordon Hayward go to Boston, which at the end of the day probably worked out for them anyway. But there are some fears there with Utah where you don't want to overspend, you don't want to start flirting with the tax to get help from Mitchell, but at the same time screwing yourself out of getting an extension with Mitchell when his contract comes up in a couple of years. So slightly tumultuous. I feel like they're sort of, like you said, stuck in the middle. But I do think by the time we get to next year, there's going to be a lot of big decisions that have to be made in Utah. It's by David Lindsay, who's now the president of the team, along with the new GM there.
Now they're treading water, but panic might set in soon.
Yes.
Place to be Nation Pop feed. There's a lot going on right now. You can check Talkin' Pop. They're back with Kim and Jenny. They're joined by Stephen Kelly from Song with Friends for a special Swapcast episode. Got a lot going on there. Andy Atherton welcomes Jennifer Smith into Laughing Theater to talk about Dumb and Dumber. The hard-traveling fanboys deliver an installment of Countdown looking at the Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And us here at the NBA team, we got a lot coming up. We got the draft preview, we got the draft, we got a free agency, we have a lot more Gone Fishins for you. So tune in to all that. Lots of good stuff. Back to the show.
Clippers with one option, trade and tank.
This might be the time to do it for the Clippers.
You gotta start somewhere. This is it.
And they have no choice but to start all over. They just have to rebuild.
Predicted to only win 33 games.
Clippers, the roster isn't strong.
You said they're not going to make the playoffs. That is disrespect at its finest.
We want competitive, hard-playing, tough guys. Guys who are going to go toe-to-toe, punch-to-punch with whoever they see.
You know how you read about these teams that tank? That ain't us. People can do it their way. Nah. We're going to be good our way.
The Clippers are weird. Like they're a decent team, but they're weird.
Extremely weird. They don't make any sense.
How did they not? They were second. It's the same problem I have with the Spurs, only it's a Doc thing. They were second in three-point percentage, but they were 25th in three-pointers made. That doesn't make any sense.
Really, that's because Lou Williams was just hot, And then Lou would go 17 for 25 from 3 one night out of nowhere and be like, oh, man. They're just weirdly, with the second unit being better than the first unit. I mean, this team hinged on Harris. On Gallinari staying healthy, which really was the first time in how many years
also,
that he was.
Also a terrible defensive team.
But don't forget, they gutted their team twice.
Mm-hmm.
They took it apart. They Lob City was over. You got rid of Chris Paul, and then you get halfway through the season, you get rid of Tobias Harris. What did they get in return? Really nothing.
Well, I mean, they did get Landry Shamet, and I really did like him. That guy wound up averaging. Now, this was in shorter amount of games because he came in after the trade deadline. He averaged 2.7 3-pointers made a game. And he gave the Warriors a lot of trouble when he teamed up with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the rookie.
They went from being Austin Rivers is your only person on the bench to everybody's on the bench, and everybody, Montrezl Harrell,
Patrick Beverly
could be a sixth man of the year. Lou Williams will be the sixth man of the year again. Shamet, the energy guy out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. The second unit was almost better than the first unit.
Mm-hmm. Garrett Temple was shockingly good. I saw some games where Temple started along with Patrick Beverly so that they could get, because even though they weren't a good defensive team, they could at least kind of sick Beverly on the best player. That was sort of that's his game. That's what he does. The other thing that's forgotten is that when they barely missed the playoffs last year, Beverly was out the entire season? Or the majority of it.
He was there for the first week to destroy Lonzo Ball's confidence, and then he got injured the second week.
A career year out of Danilo Gallinari, almost 20 points, 6 rebounds, 2 threes made, 5 free throws made per game. For those not in the know, that is excellent. That means you're in the top 10 and getting to the line. Just a really aggressive, good season for him. Probably the best season he's ever had in terms of.
Well, that's what they had hoped, and that's what we talked about the preseason last year. Was he needs to stay healthy because he's made of glass. So if he's healthy, he could provide big numbers for you. Also, they had a big draft pick win with Gilgeous-Alexander.
What do you like about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? He's got first of all, I do like how they have his jersey because of the way the lettering is. It's I can immediately tell just by looking at the back of the jersey which one is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's all I'm going to say. But what do you think about his game? He's kind of a really good defensive player who can shoot the ball well. He's got a little bit of length to him, and you can't underestimate him.
He's just a big, lanky point guard.
Yeah, he's the opposite of Shamet, but Shamet and Gilgeous-Alexander, they play off of each other very well. You could actually play them at the same time.
They could, and then when Lou is in, he's a 6 foot, shooting guard and a point guard body. So
Lou Williams is a treasure. He's become the NBA version of a national treasure, like Manu Ginobili, who was the 6-man god before Lou. Now Lou's become that guy where you just can't I remember when they beat the Warriors, not the 30-point win comeback, which was I mean, first of all, despite the fact that they did lose in 6 games to the Warriors, the 30-point win is the type of win that you can write home about for any team that is not going to win or be a contender. That's something that you can be pretty proud of. But I remember the other game that they won in Golden State, the Warrior players in the press conference were just in awe of Lou. They just you cannot let that guy get open, I
know, and the funny thing is we buried the lead. They have money for 2 max contracts.
Yeah, they're at $49 million in projected cap, which is unbelievable. Remember though, they traded Tobias Harris for draft picks for the most and Shamet, so they didn't really have to take on too much. They also traded away Avery Bradley, Boban Marjanovic. They were able to waive Milos Teodosic, so they don't really have And also Wilson Chandler, they immediately are able to take off the book. So there's a lot of room there. The problem is, like, some of the people that they were able to attain that helped them on that playoff run, like JaMychal Green, Aviga, Zubac, Patrick Beverly, they're all on the market. I can see them all re-signing to kind of beef up that cap to somewhere around $100 million. But I can see a little bit of attrition there. Like, I don't know if Temple's going to be back. I could even see them trying to swing a trade for somebody else. And but I will say this: Williams, Gallinari, Montrezl Harrell, who unless you talked about him already, who had an unbelievably good year, Shaman and Gilgeous-Alexander, they are there to stay.
Agreed, and that is why my hashtag was just house money, as I don't think the Clippers have ever been a free agent destination ever. And you have people like, oh, well, they're looking to the Clippers over the Lakers. And from just relying on Lob City and our window's still open, let's put out Lob City again. Our window's still open. Now they're just like, look, we made the playoffs with a team that was supposed to be lottery bound. We have a complete roster built around. We just need some superstars to fill it in.
My hashtag was triple rainbow because it felt like they had 3 big-time trades with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and Tobias Harris, and they kind of won out on all the trades. Would you agree with all of them, including Tobias?
Tobias will figure out.
Okay, but Chris Paul, I wouldn't say they won on the trade because I think the Rockets have actually gotten good returns on Chris Paul despite his upcoming salary.
Despite his salary, that's the problem. Is
$37 million for a 37-year-old man, yes, is not good.
Whatever you say about that, Montrezl Harrell, where was he in Houston? Houston would not have given up if they'd known he could do that, I think.
And they slam dunk won the Blake trade. I'm sorry. There's just no other way you can say it.
Okay.
I'm gonna stand by that. I just feel like getting out of the Blake contract alone was a victory. So, but outside of that, a pretty good team. Doc Rivers, I feel like he's a better soldier than he is a general. Would you agree?
Well, now he's just down to one. He's became not spread himself too thin.
Yeah, so probably just a better leader of men in this case. A decent amount of talent, a weird array, a good future lineup as a starting lineup with Lou as the sixth man. But defensively, they have to improve and they need to find 3-point shooting.
Play out of this. Oh boy.
And he does! LaMarcus Aldridge! The poster on Lopez!
Oh, just a beautiful ball fake there. And then go top shelf and get yourself an extra one at the free throw line. That's a beauty. LA not settling for the outside jumper.
Adam, the San Antonio Spurs. This one was a really weird version of San Antonio. A little bit of the process still going on, like the Greg Popovich ball or pop ball, whatever you want to call it. Kind of a struggle type of series against the Denver Nuggets in the first round. Got eliminated in 7 games. A little bit of potential there. A great year out of LaMarcus Aldridge. And also a good statistical year out of DeMar DeRozan. But how did you feel about DeRozan when you actually watched him for a full season outside of Toronto, where he had so much criticism for not being able to deliver in big moments?
Well, there was times, he was that one game he was taken out at the end of this, they were down 2 and they took him out. He's like, well, I can't shoot a 3. They took me out. So he's sort of coming to terms with who he is, and he bought into the team concept as opposed to, Toronto was, well, it's supposed to be about me. I'm the all-star. I'm the guy. Whereas here it's just like, yeah, I'm just another piece of the machine. And, Aldridge did have a resurgence.
He had, didn't he have a game? I don't remember the team, but didn't he have a game where he had, 56 points? at home.
Something like that. And
like he had a couple of doozies of games that I saw throughout the season. He was by far their best player. 21 points, 9 rebounds, more than a steal per game, 4 made free throws per game. Just a very solid season. The thing that I kind of worried me was that it was pretty well known by watching them that LaMarcus did not get along with Kawhi Leonard. So I was kind of curious about how it would work with DeRozan, since DeRozan is locked into a contract until at least 2020. So you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe they're going to run into the same issues where it turns into Me Too ball. And it didn't really happen that way. It really was basically a pecking order with Aldridge as the A, as the 1, and then DeRozan as the 1A. But the problem that the Spurs had was that if it's 1 and 1A, there was no 2, there was no 3, there was like a bunch of 4s, like Rudy Gay, Bryn Forbes, Marco Bellinelli, of the very surprisingly good Derek White, who played his second year this year, and then they were without DeJounte Murray and a couple of other players like Lonnie Walker wasn't able to play for a good portion of the season. So they had a lot of attrition along with just a lack of talent in the middle.
Well, that's what I was going to say, was they were already put behind the 8 ball from the get-go with DeJounte's injury in the preseason.
That was a killer. So also Derek White was out for that portion too.
Yeah, but you knew from then, it's like, well, you can only go so far because they're going to have trouble without a starting point guard, and they have to do the Marco Bellinelli signing really didn't pay off too much.
I mean their 3-pointers made, they were 26 in the league, which is ridiculous. And I always criticize Popovich for this because that was what won him the NBA championship in 2014, shooting a bunch of threes. They were first in 3-point field goal percentage.
They were, and they let they re-signed Bertans, who didn't really do much. You didn't mention Derek White, who completely sort of came out of nowhere this year into that. But Bryn Forbes, this used him way too much. I thought he was.
They needed a marksman, and that was the guy. It usually is Patty Mills, but it seems like, especially with the money they signed him to long term, I believe last year or the year before, that Mills has become sort of like Popovich's go-to point guard now that Tony Parker's not there anymore.
But just his usage rate for who he was, it was just like, and then the problem with the Spurs is everybody's just getting, this is an old team again. LaMarcus Aldridge has been around. He's not a young pup.
DeMar DeRozan is what, 29 or 30?
DeRozan, I think, is 30 now.
Yeah. That kind of gave him a hit because at the time we were talking about the Spurs about how young they would be, with guys like DeJounte Murray and, Derek White eventually emerged, Bryn Forbes emerged. But then you bring in Rudy Gay, who is kind of at the very end. I will say this about Rudy Gay, though. He had a terrific year. 13 points, almost 7 rebounds. He was second on the team in rebounds behind Aldridge.
Well, that's the thing is 13 points and 7 rebounds. That's way below what he used to do.
But his field goal percentage from 2 and 3 were both very good.
Yeah, and he's sort of he's becoming that guy who he is now. He's not going to be that explosive guy. He's not the 1 or the 1A guy. He's just, you're going to come off the bench or you're the third option on the first unit. So it's hard to the road ahead is very bumpy, and
it's also very predictable because their only big time unrestricted free agent is Rudy Gay. So
yeah, and they're probably going to bring him back for a reduced rate because there really isn't much of a market out there, and that's what usually happens is they'll overpay him, like Gasol, like for 3 years. Like why do they give him that much money? And then just that's what they do. They keep their own and just. That's our team, so for this team, my hashtag was just pop, because that's from the movie community. That's from the show Community. Don't think I ain't gonna catch that. Pop. From the movie Community.
No,
that's what. Yeah.
You know what's funny? I was watching the Avengers Endgame. And there's a lot of Community people in it because the Russo brothers were TV directors.
Yeah, they were directors. They did Community.
And they did Community and Arrested Development. And if you look really close, they have like a lot of Arrested Development Community people in there. But that's way on the side. My hashtag was the process continues. Like it seems like no matter what, Adam, they're always going to never take threes. They're always going to play good defense. They're always going to be able to like strike hot at the end of the game and keep it close. They're not going to turn the ball over a lot. They're going to rebound the ball fairly well. And they're going to shoot a high field goal percentage, so they're never really out of a game.
You would you think your hashtag would just be then stick to the script.
Yeah.
Because this is our team, this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is when we do everything. We wait till the big rodeo to come in. That's when we get our team together, and then.
You mentioned White though, and I really do like him. He's one of those weird guards that can block shots and steal the ball. So you got to watch out for him sometimes.
No, he came out of nowhere, which is, again, strange because he's a young person, not a European player.
He was a JUCO guy who played 1 year at Colorado, and then he went to the draft. So that's why nobody saw him. He was in the Pac-12, and before the Pac-12, he was at like a second-rate college. And then what did you think of Jakob Poeltl?
He is the replacement to Pau Gasol. He wasn't really used that much, but there we go. You had an aging center who wasn't doing anything. So here's
64% from the field is it's good potential. It's a good start.
It's a good start, and he's an emerging player, taking a couple years to come along. So it was a great pickup for them, and the trade thus far appeared to be win-win as both teams are happy with their haul.
Yeah, you're going to see a commonality with a lot of these teams where 2020 is sort of the apocalypse. But I wouldn't even say that about the Spurs because I don't think DeMar DeRozan is going to opt out in 2020. And they got Marcus Aldridge signed now through 2021 at the very least, along with Derek White. So I feel like with the Spurs, we're going to see a little more of the same. Like, what do you feel like they need in free agency? I know that they don't usually make a splash outside of when they got Aldridge in 2015. But, like, do you feel like that they're going to try to make a splash? Or if they don't and they just do the typical R.C. Buford thing where they just try to get kind of singles and like get a bunt here.
That's the thing is they're not going to do anything major because, like you said, Murray, White, DeRozan, Aldridge, and Poeltl all under contract the next 2 years. So
they desperately need a shooter. I do believe that they desperately need a shooter and they need one more rebounder, another good center.
They do need a center. But then again, do they really need to? Could they, if you want to start developing a small ball lineup, you might not need that traditional old school center. And then, backup shooter.
Yep. But outside of that, the Spurs, solid team. I predicted that they wouldn't make the playoffs, so they absolutely exceeded expectations. Would you agree?
Agreed.
Yeah, I would agree. We'll see how long they could go, but if you got Greg Popovich signed through for 3 more years like he did just about a couple of weeks ago, you feel pretty good.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have over 24 podcasts available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We now offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE to the glory days of yesteryear and the ins and outs of the territory days. In addition to our full-length shows, we also deliver to you special pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop feed is a veritable treasure trove of great content. Offer tremendous shows covering the land of movies, television, life, comics, and sports, brought to you by the most knowledgeable and insightful folks in the podcast world.
You can find all these great shows, plus archives of our past podcasts from over the past 8 years as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth search projects, and much more. Be sure to support our site by using www.PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping. We want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and TheHistoryOfWrestling.com as well. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop